am Alicia Kelso, day 2 of the National Restaurant Association show at McCormick Place in Chicago, Illinois. I'm with Laurie Schalow, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Chipotle. And I love talking to you, and I would be remiss if I didn't start this conversation congratulating you for being one of our power listers this year.
Thank you very much. I was very honored, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm just getting spoiled talking to you a lot. So well deserved. You've been in this industry so long. I really do enjoy talking to you because of your depth of perception with everything going on. How long have you been at Chipotle now?
Almost 8 years.
8 years.
Yep.
And prior with Yum.
Yep, Yum Brands for about 20 years.
Okay.
So, but as you said in the article, I started out at Baskin-Robbins as an ice cream scooper at 16, and I just love this industry.
Baskin-Robbins was just voted the most popular restaurant chain by all adults. Yeah.
I did not know that, but I love their ice cream.
Yes, I figure it's still, you still have an affinity there. Chipotle just released its sustainability report, about 2 weeks ago? Yeah. So tell me what some of the highlights were from this year's report, and maybe if anything was new.
Yeah, sure. So in general, we're focused on people, food and animals, and the environment, and that's how our report is set up. Our main goals are to reduce our carbon emissions. We have a SBTI target for scope 1, 2, and 3 to reduce those emissions, by 2030. That's getting here very quickly.
It is.
And we could talk a little bit about the challenges of that and what goes into that. But we've had some great goals around really sourcing more local, because we love to have local farmers and help them stay in business. So we were proud about the 46 million pounds of local sourcing that we hit this year. Again, on our reduction in waste, which is in the report, our people metrics. So it was a good year, good report.
Good. And I want to zoom in on that emissions reduction because, I was doing some research on this, and there was really an inflection point in about 2018. McDonald's was the first company to come out and say, this is what we're going to do. Everybody else, followed suit. That seems like a very broad and really hard goal. What goes into that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And a lot of people don't understand there's scope 1 and 2 and scope 3. Scope 1 and 2 are within your control, right? So those are things that we can do. And what we did is we looked at, before we set that goal, because I'm not a believer in net zero if you don't have a pathway to get there.
Yeah.
So right now our goal is 50%. And we looked at what are our most emissions, heavy focuses in the company right now. And then we targeted those. So think about logistics, shipping to and from your restaurants, your own energy use, within your restaurant, packaging, waste, all those things that scope 1 and 2. Scope 3 is a much harder nut to crack, which is because that's your supply chain. So how do you help your suppliers also reduce their emissions so that you can take credit for that?
How do you do that?
So that's the challenge. But the good news is, especially at Chipotle, we have such great suppliers who also share our belief in cultivating a better world and leaving the world a better place. Yeah. So they also have sustainability goals, and they want to partner with us to help them reduce their emissions, which helps us reduce our emissions. So it's a lot of things of regenerative agriculture, just being, leveraging new technologies. Yeah. But they're great. They're super excited about partnering with us.
Great. There's a new sort of facet to the report this year in that you partnered with a solar energy company. Can you tell me why solar is a priority?
Yeah, it definitely helps us, especially locally, offset some of the electricity usage. So we have been doing some solar projects around the country where it makes sense. We also have in Chino, California, we have solar panels that we partnered with a company, because if you look at the space on top of rooftops of restaurants, it's very small.
Yeah.
So there's not enough space to actually have a true dent on the electricity usage to offset it there. Similar to homes, it can offset a little bit, but it's never going to offset all of your usage. So putting solar canopies over parking spaces, which provide shade in the summer. Think about Arizona, California, where you have a lot of sun, but also gives you more spaces to put solar panels. Okay. So again, using, being able to withdraw that solar energy to offset our electrical usage is a benefit to us.
Sure. And especially, I was, again, doing this research, and I didn't realize, we talk about inflation impacting everything. And I think one of the things that we sort of missed with that story is that energy is also up.
Yes.
So, food costs are up, labor costs are up. Well, energy is up double digits as well.
Right.
So, does that present new opportunities for you to look at things like solar? And I mean,
Yeah.
has that become more urgent for you?
It does. And, we're actually moving from gas to electric, which helps with emissions, but electric is more expensive. So
Yeah.
then it becomes even more attractive to try to leverage some of that solar energy to offset the cost.
Sure.
Definitely.
Chipotle sits in such a sweet spot. It's this juggernaut, and just a fun company to follow with all the industry leading things that you guys do. I'm curious because of your unique perspective. Obviously this show is mostly smaller operators, independents, those mom and pops who are accelerating a significant interest in sustainability because of legislation, mandates, because consumers are demanding it more, whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, how do you, do you have advice for those smaller operators who don't have no debt, deep pocket Chipotle?
But a lot of it is you can start small and start local, right? Like even recycling, composting, the way that you're collecting the trash, so waste is a huge component of
Yeah.
it. Just being smart about your usage within the restaurant. If you're right, they probably can't afford an energy management system that we have across our restaurants to make sure the lights go off at night, the hood
Right.
systems go off, so you're saving electricity. But making sure they can put timers, just like
Yeah.
you and I can buy at Home
Yeah.
Depot, right?
Yeah.
You have some timers and things that you can use to leverage that. But I think also just engaging your customers and your employees because they do care about, the amount of emissions that are happening
Yeah.
and what's happening with global warming. So if you can engage them to care,
Yeah.
to turn off the water, to make sure they're doing those things, both at work and at home, that'll help. So there's a lot of things they can do. And then even just looking at up the supply chain,
Yeah.
and seeing what other best practices they can provide to them.
Yeah, you've been doing this work for a long time. So tell me maybe how this work has evolved industry wide and Chipotle, specific. I mean, are we seeing priorities shift? Is any of the work become more challenging because
Yeah.
of, policy changes or anything? Explain your perspective there.
I think consumer demand continues to rise. So I think you mentioned the expectation from consumers that if we're opening 315 to 345 restaurants a year, we have to offset that growth with reduction. So we don't get a credit for those openings. So when you're in growth mode, it's even more challenging to meet your objectives. So consumers still expect you to, okay, you're growing, but you have to take care of the environment.
Right.
So there's that expectation. I think that what has changed, if I think about the last 15 to 20 years, is the reporting requirements. And so that is somewhat, that goes with different changes in administration and that. So we spend unfortunately, a lot of my team's time is on reporting.
Yeah.
So I'd rather they're spending time on leading and looking for innovative solutions to reduce, some of the emissions in that. But it is very heavy on reporting.
Sure. And obviously you oversee food safety as well. And just Loctite systems in place at Chipotle. Explain how that work has changed and, maybe how you, again, a piece of advice for smaller operators that are intensely focused on this now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, food safety is, the barrier to entry. You have to have incredible food safety standards. And, again, no surprise, we had, issues back in 2015, 2016. But I'm always really proud to talk
That
about.
preceded you.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm always proud to talk about all the work that's been done, all the resources, both, people and money put against making sure we have best in class food safety standards, and we continue to look any ways we can to make sure we can improve upon those. But for smaller operators, I was just speaking on a panel today with a smaller operator, and he was mentioning about pre-marinated chicken and bringing that back in house. And you have to be careful with those things. So is it a cost reason why you're doing it? Is it a quality reason why you're doing it? But I think you just have to really be careful and make sure you fully understand those changes you're making, especially when it comes to fresh food that isn't then put in a pizza oven and cooked to 600 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. How does technology play? I mean, I imagine that this is just accelerated beyond your imagination from when you started at Chipotle to now. So
yeah, I love technology though. And as we're growing, I tell people we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them. So, we now have almost 3,800 restaurants, 130,000 employees. We have more customers commenting with us, talking to us on social. So we have to find new ways to monitor, track all that data, use that data and analysis, the way we communicate with our customers, the way we even sell our products and our digital. Everything is changing very, very quickly, but I love it. So the pace is fast, but it's good.
How does it help from a food safety and sustainability perspective? I mean, there are tools that you leverage for those two things specifically.
Yeah, more so on, I think about the sustainability side. So we have a Cultivate Next, which we investing $100 million into startup companies. And so a lot of them are technology backed and focused, which are finding creative ways to help with some of the challenges that we all face as we're growing, the industry. And so there's some great partners out there that are leveraging technology to help us.
Yeah, it's fun to cover whenever you announce a new partner. I lived in Columbus, by the way, for 7 years. So that Mediterranean, Brassica?
Brassica,
yes, awesome.
Love Brassica.
That wasn't technology, but it's good food, right?
Exactly.
You also have a unique perspective because you're on the board for the National Restaurant Association show. You have been for 6 years, I think. And so, if you were to describe today's current environment and the challenges that are persisting today. I mean, I was going to start a drinking game every time I heard the word uncertainty. I realize that's probably not a healthy thing to do.
Right.
But I am curious to know what your perspective is and the priorities and the challenges that have really bubbled up to the surface.
Yeah, we mentioned this in our quarterly earnings that we're starting to see some of that consumer uncertainty. Started in about February and continued on, and it's across all income cohorts. It's not just one part of the economy, but they're just nervous. They don't know what's happening, so they're conserving a little bit more. But at the same time, our brand is super strong. All of our brand metrics are off the charts, best they've been. Our turnover is low, like everything is moving in the right direction. We have a great value proposition. It's just the consumer is, again, that uncertain environment that we all, we start to pull back. We just want to wait and see what's happening. So I think that's impacting, across, we talked about that a lot at the board meeting this past week, is that, and what can we do in these uncertain times to, and you don't want to necessarily just have to play the value game because that never ends, right? So making sure that you're delivering that great value, that great guest experience, that everyone who comes in your door, you have to take great care of them.
Yeah. How does this wonky environment impact some of the business decisions? Because again, the policies change. I imagine it's hard to forge forward with the growth that you have when you don't know what the impact of the cost of equipment is going to be, or labor from Canada, or how are you guys staying agile? I guess.
Well, the good news is we have long-term contracts with a lot of our suppliers, so there's not an immediate reaction that we need to do. We can, we have a great balance sheet, as you know, so we don't have to do that knee-jerk reaction. But we've been diversifying our supply chain, which is really helping us. In these days, but we're marching ahead. I mean, we aren't stopping because fortunately we can do that. We have the backing to do that. So we're still going to open as many restaurants as we said we were. We're not pulling back on any of that guidance. So that's right. We're going to get there.
Yeah, and international now is a much bigger part of the conversation, which is fun. So
so we partnered with Alicia, and now we have, I think, 4 or 5 restaurants in the Middle East. We just announced a partnership with Alicia in Mexico to open restaurants early next year. Canada, Europe, we're growing.
How fun. All right, your level of optimism then. You said it, full speed ahead, 7,000 or bust.
Yep, we're going to charge, straight ahead. It is uncertain times. We recognize that. We want to keep offering a great value to our consumers, making sure we talk about being guest obsessed, taking care of every guest who walks in the restaurant. But we are optimistic that things will change.
And your priorities for the rest of this year?
Yeah, still focused on restaurant operations. We're leveraging technology to help our restaurant employees to run more efficiently. So we have a lot of work going on there. We talk about technology on the back end, but this is directly in our restaurants. And then just continue to open, like I said, 300 plus restaurants.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to covering all of it. And
forward to talk
those tech integrations are really cool, like the
avocado and the digital make line.
So, Laurie, Schalow, I appreciate your time, and hope we'll talk soon.
Definitely. Thank you. Thanks very much.